Texas begins busing migrants to Denver to make a point. Tonight, we're looking at why Denver is getting less help than other cities that are also providing for migrants. And we're examining whether the city's really trying to get an assist from other places in Colorado. Too much of a good thing. More rain means more flooding along the Front Range today and into tonight. We'll watch a traffic stop go wrong in real time when an officer pulls his gun on a driver who's following directions.
It just escalated so fast. I just thought I was going to die that night.
And if you thought Denver's school board might fire the superintendent over safety and security issues, nope. He got a raise and a new contract today. All tonight on Next. Denver is the latest target of Texas's governor, who's busing migrants to so-called sanctuary cities to make a political point. Republican Governor Greg Abbott bragged about it on social media today, shortly after 41 migrants from Texas were dropped off at Denver Civic Center Park. It is the first time that we, or the city of Denver, knows of migrants being sent here on a charter bus as opposed to traveling here on public transportation by their own choice. Denver has welcomed 10,000 migrants since December. There are 1,100 migrants currently in shelters in Denver. Texas has been sending migrants to Democrat-run cities since last April. Governor Abbott says he has now ordered more than 19,000 migrants sent to cities like Washington, D.C., Chicago, and New York. And Abbott's also had busloads of migrants dropped off in front of the homes of Democrats, including Vice President Kamala Harris. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock called Governor Abbott's move political theater. And then Hancock engaged in a bit of it himself. He said he was going to send Governor Abbott the bill for the migrant support. He's not actually going to do that. Hancock's spokesman told us that what he was referring to is the fact that Texas is getting more federal funding to help with migrants and that Denver wants more of that federal money. Our Marshall Zellinger found today that cities impacted by the migrant crisis are not always getting the same amount of federal funding for each person they help. And Denver has ended up on the short end.
The federal government is sending money to cities and states caring for migrants. The amount is far from equal. The city and county of Denver and the state's Office of Emergency Management combined received $1.1 million. So far, Denver has received 10,000 migrants. That's about $115 in federal aid for each arrival. Compare that to New York, which has received $30 million and has seen 61,000 migrants. That averages about $500 per arrival. Chicago and the Illinois Department of Human Services received $8.6 million with about 8,000 migrants arriving there. That average, more than $1,000 per arrival. In total, Texas governments and assistance groups have received $128 million. In December, Denver's administration reached out to 36 cities and a half-dozen counties asking for help to care for migrants. Larimer County sheltered some for a while. Adams and Boulder County provided volunteers. And the city of Boulder allowed employees to work their shift at a Denver shelter. 25 employees did that, and it could be happening again soon.
What we've heard from Denver is that they really do have a need, some additional need for Spanish-speaking staff members.
Elizabeth Crow is Boulder's Deputy Director of Housing and Human Services and just told employees that Denver needs help again, offering city workers who speak Spanish to work their shift in a Denver shelter and get a bonus.
We just relaunched that incentive and announced it to staff again yesterday.
Boulder County, that was city, Boulder County is also allowing employees to work a shift in a Denver shelter without the extra bonus. A spokeswoman for that effort said that those employees who have volunteered are going through required background checks, which you need to work in one of these Denver shelters.
It's really striking, the discrepancy in the amount of per migrant funding that cities are receiving. So just today, conservative think tank here in Colorado, Common Sense Institute, figures that Denver's spending like $1,500 to $2,000 per migrant. So if you're a city getting a $1,000 reimbursement for that, that's covering the bulk of your costs versus Denver getting $100, which drop in the bucket.
I mean, New York, Chicago, Denver, I would argue you'd have, I mean, New York's probably much more expensive in terms of caring for someone, but in general, that's about the same amount. I reached out to FEMA to find out why the discrepancy. The local person here kicked it to D.C., and it was too late for me to get an answer from D.C. Not their fault, my fault for doing it too late. Hopefully I'll get that answer tomorrow.
This is a multi-day process. We're working on this every day. We're always looking for new questions and hopefully getting some new answers. Marshall, thank you. Spring storms are storming on us again today. Another round of rain and hail, flooding in spots. We're watching for possible flooding tonight. So Longmont and parts nearby are one trouble spot. They're under flash flood warning right now. Standing water in a few places. including that, Lou, and humans making some questionable choices like driving through floodwaters that are going up over the hood there. Denver got a good bit too. It was dumping rain in some city neighborhoods this afternoon. This is University Hills today. And I guess the question, Danielle Grant, is nuisance or danger? And I suppose it probably depends on your location.
Absolutely. Northern Colorado, they're still looking at a little bit of flooding happening. They have a flood advisory going at least for the next hour or two. Parts of Weld County, Adams County, off to the eastern plains. It's all about some severe storms that are popping up. A whole lot of lightning and really gusty winds. This is our camera around Greeley. Couple of drops on the camera lens. Maybe in the distance, if you squint, a little bit of blue sky out there. It's gray across Boulder, and we're once again looking for another round to roll in within about the next 2 hours or so. So we're not done yet. Again, the strongest storms off to the eastern plains for now. Just some light rain showers cruising off the foothills. Those will start to intensify, however, for us within the next hour or two. Just throw on the lightning tracker, close to 600 strikes in the past 15 minutes time off to the eastern plains. Do have one severe cell putting down 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts toward Ray. Otherwise, that's about it. These storms, they're with us. 7, 8 o'clock, still going strong off to the eastern plains. They'll be pushing back into the metro area again late tonight, just like last night. Pretty good sleeping weather, right? As we look ahead toward early tomorrow morning, it's still cool, cloudy, unsettled with a couple of scattered rain showers off and on throughout the day. But about 5, 6 o'clock, most of the action is up in the mountains, so keep that in mind. If you're getting a jump start on the weekend, might even find a little bit of light snowfall above 10,000 feet. Late tomorrow evening, everything finally starts to move out. But that cold front, it meant business today. High pressure starts to scoot a little closer to Colorado just in time for the weekend, and that means slightly drier conditions around. All right, so tomorrow morning, it's going to be gray out there, a little soggy, but maybe a glimmer of hope and a little sunshine in the afternoon. Still going to be a cool day with highs in the 60s, but the 70s, more isolated storms back for the weekend.
Thank you, Danielle. Every time the Front Range gets pounding rains, of course, one of the big worries is the Cameron Peak fire burn scar up in Larimer County. And the National Weather Service was warning people for a time today that they needed to get to higher ground immediately. They said lives were at risk with the potential for flooding. That warning has been allowed to expire at this point. The threat is from that familiar cycle. So an area will burn in a wildfire. Cameron Peak was 2020. Then the ground can't absorb as much water, and the vegetation that holds back mudslides is gone. So you get years worth of danger. Last July, heavy rain up there triggered flooding that killed a mother and daughter who were visiting the area from Littleton. Flooding on Buckhorn Creek swept away their cabin. A risk assessment after the Cameron Peak fire found that upper Buckhorn area has some of the highest potential for flooding, and it's danger that's most intense in the first 5 years after a fire. Aurora police are under a microscope, and that court-ordered consent decree requiring them to stop racially biased policing. So what does that look like in everyday interactions if it is there? A man named Preston Nunn says what happened to him is a prime example. He was pulled over for a minor traffic infraction and was following the officer's directions when the officer pulled his weapon. There's video of this that can be tough to watch, but you should know, everybody survives. Here's Steve Stager.
Just minding my business.
Preston Nunn was out for a drive this night in May of 2021 with a girl in the passenger seat.
You know why I'm pulling you over?
Why?
What's the law in Colorado when a vehicle has its emergency lights on like that? Slow down and get over.
Officer Gabriel Nestor asks for a license and registration. Nunn hands over his registration, then reaches for his wallet.
It just escalated so fast.
Give me your license registration. I'm about to tow your vehicle.
I'm sorry. No, but you're absolutely right. But no, you're absolutely.
What are you digging for? Stop digging! Why are you digging in your pants like that? Put your hands on your face!
Less than a minute into this call, Officer Nestor has his gun trained on Nunn.
I just thought I was going to die that night.
Nunn told us he thought he was going to get shot, so he got out of the car.
And to protect the female passenger that didn't deserve nothing that was going on.
Getting out.
Get down!
Get down!
Get down on the ground now!
Nah,
Get down on the ground now!
Because I got my license. Oh my God. I got my license and registration.
Officer Cody Getz then takes him to the ground, where he hits his head.
I got my license.
Give me your hand!
Registration.
Getz chokes him.
I'm gonna tase him! I'm gonna tase him!
I got my license and registration.
Then Nestor tases him twice.
I was gushing blood from my face to my mouth and knees, arms, elbows.
And I'm suing all y'all.
What we have is a matter of excessive force.
Nunn's attorney says what happened was a clear violation of Aurora policy and an example of why that police department is under a consent decree.
If this was a rich, older white man, this would have never occurred. This occurred because Preston Nunn is a young black man in a nice vehicle.
The PD had no comment on Nunn's lawsuit, which names all of the 8 officers who responded that day.
That night changed my life.
There's one moment from that night that Nunn says keeps replaying in his mind what Nestor said to him after that struggle was over.
Why did you do that?
You about got shot, bud.
You should have shot me then.
No, I'm glad I didn't.
I'll never forget that in my whole life. I mean, for the rest of my life.
We're next. I'm Steve Stager.
Officer Nestor got a written reprimand for his actions that night. None of the other officers there were disciplined. The superintendent of Denver's public schools gets a raise from a school board that's now split over how he's handling safety issues. The reason that you're seeing Next reporting in the first attack ad of the mayoral runoff, and why we think that that beats the alternative. And students turning trees into art, a very different way to learn. Next. Denver Public School Superintendent Alex Marrero is under a lot of scrutiny over school safety these days. But he's not going anywhere. The school board narrowly voted today to give him a raise and a contract extension. A 4-3 vote, the board changed Marrero's contract to bump up his base salary to $305,000 a year and add performance-based bonuses. Marrero's contract was also extended a year. We'll keep him in Denver through mid-2026. 3 board members voted against the changes. They argued that the contract negotiation process was rushed and it was not transparent. In fact, the public was not allowed to see the contract until it had been approved. And School Board Vice President Ayante Anderson argued now's not the time to give the boss a raise, given public criticism of the district following the shootings at East High. But Board President Xochitl Gaitan said that the raise is necessary to bring Marrero's pay in line with other districts across the state.
As an Afro-Latino superintendent in this state and the leader of the district with most students of color in Colorado, Dr. Marrero is entitled to a fair compensation. And so that is more appropriately aligned with his peers across the state.
Last year, the State Department of Education reported that the state average for a superintendent was $142,000. Marrero made $276,000 last year. Despite leading the state's largest school district, there were 10 other superintendents who made more. We are getting some feedback about Next reporting once again showing up in a political ad. A viewer named Jen was among a couple folks who wrote in concerned about that fact. This time it is an attack ad, first one of the runoff. It's from a group supporting Kelly Brough and going after Mike Johnson in the race for mayor. The ad does not make false claims about our reporting, but it does use clips of our reporting in a way that removes the context that we gave you on air. The ad, most importantly, makes a big claim that we did not make in our reporting. It says that Johnston lied about his resume. That is never anything that we've reported. So we talk about this issue every single campaign season when our reporting inevitably turns up in a negative ad. It's not really something that we can control. I mean, we could control it in the sense that if we were to never take a critical look at candidates, we would never end up in a negative ad. That is one way to cover politics, but I don't think that that would serve you very well as a viewer and as a voter. If the trees in Denver's La Alma neighborhood could talk, well, actually, they can. That's next. Tonight's next question comes from Karen in Denver. She's noticed a lot of traffic installations like these popping up at intersections and turn lanes around town, and Karen asked if we could explain their purpose. Well, Karen, those thingies did some of what they're supposed to do. They got your attention, hopefully slowed down a little bit. Denver's been investing in what they call traffic calming infrastructure for the past few years. Basically, they use things like paint on the streets and cones and poles, those bollards, to narrow the street, to encourage drivers to slow down and see pedestrians and cyclists like at crossings and turns. This began with a project on West Colfax and Broadway in 2020, and the city's hoping to do 2 new corridors each year. If you listen to the trees in Denver's La Alma, Lincoln Park neighborhood, they have a story to tell. Just got to scan the QR code. A group of students are working with an artist to dream up stories about the place where they live.
This project is called Tree Tales, and it's in La Alma, Lincoln Park in Denver. It's flags of different sizes that are painted and screen printed. The process was really complex. When we conceived of this project, we wanted youth voices to be a part of it. And there's an organization called Art Street, and their mission is to provide opportunities for the youth to create or experience art. They both wrote their own stories about trees and recorded those.
My name's Estrella. I'm 15 years old. The title of the story is Watering the Tree.
And they also sewed and worked right along beside me in painting, sewing, and screen printing the flags for the installation. They were so open to the idea of expressing, like the voice of trees. That was a really enjoyable part, especially the storytelling part.
Angel V. Hill reading his story, The Three Branches, deep inside the forest on the other side of the mountain.
As humans, we have a long history of connecting with trees and using trees to tell our stories and also to connect with nature through trees. So yes, I think the trees in some ways are telling our story, but maybe we're telling their story too.
The Tree Tales Project is a partnership with Art Street. It's a nonprofit that helps underserved youth build life skills through creative projects like that. Those installations will be up until November. Holy cow, the amount of feedback you sent in about sanctuary cities and what Texas did today. Next. A mess load of feedback tonight about Denver's sanctuary city status and the situation with migrants right now. Dylan, Denver's a sanctuary city. Put your money where your mouth is. Well, the city certainly is now. And it's fair to talk about whether the city's welcoming stance means that more people are coming here as a result. One thing I'd note, just as somebody who's covered the mayor's race, both candidates in the runoff for mayor say they will continue the sanctuary city policies. In the field of 17, there were 1 or 2 candidates who said that they would not continue those policies. And I don't think together they added up to 15% of the vote. This note, I have faith the good people of Colorado can absorb a busload of new people and get them started on the road to prosperity. A lot of folks responded that way to the busload of 41 migrants sent here by Texas today. As Susan's saying, everybody who's angry, think about those tiny border towns that deal with thousands of people a day. They can't. It's a U.S. policy. The entire U.S. needs to deal with it. I mean, certainly we do through our taxes, Susan, but you're right. It does disproportionately fall on some places in America. It's always been border towns, and now it's a few disproportionately impacted cities, including Denver. Alan, wonder if it'd be less expensive to help Mexico, Venezuela, etc., fix things so people would want to stay there. That's what the U.S. government has been talking about doing for years. It's not something Denver can do on its own. See you next time.